I would like to introduce you to our 10th SDG Pioneer. Mr. Greg Welsh is a director of Winya Indigenous Furniture in Australia. And the reason why we selected him is that he is an example, a living example of how a small company can improve the lives of Indigenous people while advancing labour, environmental and social justice standards far beyond the borders of his own country. He is the SDG Pioneer for Economic Empowerment of Indigenous Peoples, and a reminder, like the other 9, that when we talk about the 17 goals, we are ultimately talking about social justice.
I like the term pioneer. It means you do not have to get everything right, but it means we're trying. And the people in the room here are in this room because we actually have a focus on doing something better than running a normal company. So it's a great honour to be here with you. Winya started back in 2015 with visionary Aboriginal woman Debbie Barwick. And we decided to set up a business that was going to be majority Indigenous owned business and endeavour to always be majority Indigenous staffed. That meant we took on a lot of extra work that a normal business did not have to do. Australia is a highly developed country. Indigenous disengagement and Indigenous disadvantage in Australia is actually quite extraordinary by comparison to the rest of the country. So we decided to create a company to address this, and we made it part of our DNA to try and do everything different along the way. That created a whole range of issues that personally I didn't expect. My grandfather was an Indigenous man, but I've been raised as I call myself a white boy, as my Indigenous staff call me white boy. I see a lot of issues that I did not expect when we started this business. We have HR issues that are quite extraordinary. We have staff who've had multiple sisters murdered in town camps through domestic violence. We have staff who, this is the first employee in an extended family group, where in the first generation of actually employing and starting Indigenous businesses in Australia, there have not been businesses to hand down from father to son to daughter. This is the first generation in Australia that Indigenous people have actually owned their own businesses. So it's quite an extraordinary change. So internally, we've had our own issues. Externally, we've tried to influence a lot of other people. Our business model is quite unique. We actually design and place furniture around Australia. And if you've got your own subsidiaries in Australia, I'd ask you to please give us a phone call. We need the business. We place Indigenous youth into the factories who are making our component parts. And we actually pay for those youth to be placed in those factories. And we pay for their initial mentoring to make sure that they're sticky and stay in those businesses. And we've made mistakes along the way. We went from having 100% turnover of kids we put in factories to now we've got about a 70% retention rate. So we're doing things better as we go along. We also decided early on to do things beyond our urban boundary. Australia's a vast place and the majority of Indigenous people are not necessarily in the cities. We made a part of what we wanted to do to go back out into remote and regional Australia and engage with the people in areas where there's little or no employment to try and work out how to make those people part of our supply chain and bring work into those remote areas. And in the past couple of years, we've won multiple awards for products where we're taking timbers from mine sites that otherwise would have been burned, where we've engaged the local Indigenous population to provide those timbers to us. And it's not been easy. It's probably taken 10 phone calls and 10 emails just to get shipments of timber, which is far different to an ordinary business. But we've managed to actually bring that remote community into our supply chain, create some employment back there, and we've won awards for our furniture. We've also looked at the other major problem in Australia, which is Indigenous incarceration. The Aboriginal population is 3% of the Australian population, but represents 27% of those in jail. It also represents 46% of youth in incarceration. So it's quite an extraordinary number. So Winya's actually made a point of actually reaching into the prison systems and trying to actually get training and programs set up within the prison systems to make our component parts. So in a number of states, we actually now have products being made as part of traineeship programs within the prison systems. It costs us more than we could do ourselves locally, but that's part of what Winya's DNA is. So we've done a lot of things differently. We're here because we're making a lot more effort than ordinary companies, and I look in front of me and there's a lot of companies here that are here for the same reasons. So I'm actually really honoured to be accepting this great accolade in front of people who actually care, and people who are also out there making a difference in front of the United Nations Global Compact and in front of my 9 cohort here today. Thank you very much.